Welcome to another edition of the Do This, Sell More show. I'm your host, Dave Lorenzo, and today we're talking about publicity, and we're talking about book publicity specifically. Those of you who know me, those of you who are in professional services know that I love the written word. I particularly love books, and the reason that I love books is because it helps you with the three things that are most important for anyone who's in professional services. It helps you with credibility, it helps you with visibility, and it helps you with differentiation. Well, as I am known to do, I scour the earth looking for the best people to bring to you to help you with these topics. And today we have a gentleman named Scott Lorenzo, and he is a book publicist, but he has worked on all aspects of PR. Now, let me read his bio to you, because today what we're going to talk about is what PR is good for. We're going to talk about books specifically, and we're going to talk about how you can leverage a book. I know you have a book inside you, how you can leverage a book to grow your professional practice or leverage a book to grow your business, even if you're an entrepreneur. Let me tell you a little bit about Scott first. Scott is a book publicist, and he's the president of Westwind Communications. And Westwind is a public relations and marketing firm with a special knack for working with authors and entrepreneurs to help them get all the publicity they deserve and more. And one of the reasons I was really drawn to Scott's bio is because Scott works with professionals, not just people who write books on a whim. He works with doctors, he works with lawyers, he worked with a former Navy SEAL, he's worked with CEOs, he's worked with fitness gurus. Pretty much you name it, Scott's worked with them. He's also taught a course at the Learning Annex in New York City. And those of you who are from New York City, and I know we have quite a few folks out there who watch us on YouTube who live in New York, you're familiar with what the Learning Annex is. The Learning Annex teaches people, it's really professional education. Well, Scott taught the course in PR at the Learning Annex in New York City. The people who have written books and he's represented have been featured on CNN, ABC Nightly News, Nightline, Time, PBS. I mean, you name it, he's got them placed everywhere. So I couldn't find a better person to bring to you to talk about PR and books than Scott. Scott Lorenzo, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David. Great to be here. Appreciate it. I love your last name too, by the way.
My last name and your last name fit together perfectly, and we even wore the uniform to make sure that everybody knew. All right, Scott, let's talk about PR in general. So I meet a lot of people, particularly professionals, who say to me, hey, listen, Dave, if I could just get on the Today Show, that's all my business would need. Is that true?
Well, for some people it is true. I will say, I mean, PR has launched many businesses. It's launched many ideas, inventions, and we find out about new ideas, new inventions through the media. I mean, most of the time. I mean, now there's platforms like Kickstarter, and there's Facebook and other methods to get the word out. But we find out still about most things through the media, TV, radio, newspaper, magazine.
All right, so I want to get the word out about my new business. I can't just go on TV, or I can't just go to the Wall Street Journal and say, hey, you should write an article about my business, right? What do people do to get publicity for their business? How does that work?
Well, let me tell you about how it's more difficult today than it's ever has been, okay? I remember I was in the Detroit News one time in the bowels of the company, and there were 20 giant mail bags. And you know, the old mail bags that are like a garbage bag? Filled with letters, okay? And I asked the mailroom clerk, I said, so what are all those, like invoices? I go, no, those are like press releases. I go, you got to be kidding me. And he was taking them up to the newsroom to have them open them up. Then it was the fax machine. Then it was a really great thing with the faxes. I could shoot them right into the newsroom. They got them, they saw them. Then that went haywire. Then it was email. Email was great. And then forget that now. And then voicemail. It used to be you could actually call people up on the phone, but now they just take a message for everything, voicemail. And so you really got to reach out to people in interesting ways, like Facebook, LinkedIn. I'll do quite a lot of things. I've actually, camped out of a couple studios and said, hey, you got to talk to my client. This is a great story. And it's like, oh my God, and it's like, you haven't responded to my email. And I know you would, but you must not be getting it. So I'm here to show you this thing. And they go, oh yeah, this is great. I'm sorry, I didn't get your email. I only get 500 a day. So that's what goes on. So anyway, what was your question about the whole? I mean, the thing is, it's really, you just can't walk into the studios anymore. Like I was at a local Detroit station here a few weeks ago. Literally, I walked around the building 3 times. I could not get in the building. It's on lockdown. There's a lady behind a desk. There's a buzzer. There's a this and a that. You can't get in. And if, they think half the people dropping off a box like is a bomb or something. I don't know. It's a weird world we live in. It's just crazy now.
So what do you do in order to get your clients in front of the people who need to make decisions? I mean, first let's talk about who those people are, right? So for TV, it's producers. For
Right.
for newspapers, is it editors or writers? Who is it?
It's at all levels. Okay. And TV, it's the producers, it's the reporters. Oftentimes, it's the overnight guy. It's the guy that does the planning 3 weeks ahead of time, or 4 weeks, or 5 weeks ahead of time. So in the newspaper business, it's the guy right on the street, the reporter that covers that issue, or it's the person in the newsroom, the features editor. The news media is like a newspaper. It's better, I think, to go right directly to the reporter who covers the beat, because they're the ones that are looking for the interesting stories. And then they go, hey, I like it. And then they pitch it to the boss. The boss says, yeah, that's great. Go do it. Okay, that happens a lot these days. But it's like just the other day, I had a environmental story. And so I saw a story in the online version from a TV station. And so I pitched that guy, that reporter, a story that was relevant that we're working on. And he said, oh, that's awesome. He covered the whole thing, interviewed my client, and wrote up a great story and published it. And so that was one hit, boom. And I could sit there and tell you all day long how unusual that is compared to some of the things you got to do today, really, to get the word out. It's tough. It's way tougher than it used to be.
Does it still make sense, Scott, to do press releases? Do they still work?
Press releases are still very effective, because here's why. A press release, you got to have a pitch. You got to say, look at it as an introduction. If I were to introduce you to my friend, just like you had just introduced me, you're introducing me to your clients. You didn't tell them the whole thing. You didn't give my life story. You just said, here's this guy. He can do this, this, and this. Here's his background, blah, blah, blah. Boom. That was the introduction. The biography, the visit to my website, that's where you get the whole enchilada and you can find out more about me. Then we can talk, okay? That's how that whole process works. But you didn't give me the whole, you didn't give me the whole book at one time. You gave me the introduction, okay? That's what we do in PR. We introduce the client to the media and see if there's any, hey, you want a date? Do you want to have a cup of coffee? Want to have a drink? This is a conversation. And then you say, yeah, let's do it. Okay, well, now then let's talk about a relationship. Okay, you just don't dive into, a long-term relationship, in 5 minutes. Okay. If you know
No,
what I mean.
I get it. I understand. Is it helpful, Scott, if you hook on to something that's currently in the news, or if you work up the story partially for the reporter? How do you do it? Give me how you connect with these folks in a way that interests them.
Okay, so the religious reporter is not interested in hearing about something that has to do with the oil industry. Okay, they're not interested. The guy that covers business doesn't want to hear about your event at a local church, okay, or something like that. I mean, so you got to get the right person. You find the right person in the media and pitch them the story idea that's relevant. Like this guy here that I talked about a minute ago, that was an environmental reporter, and I pitched him an environmental story about the same, things that he's interested in. So it was a hit, and I was confident it was going to be a nice hit because it was relevant. And so that's you've got to get the right person, and you got to ask a question. People immediately usually start selling right away, especially authors. I hate to tell you, but authors in general can't believe that people are not interested in their book. They just can't believe it. They're shocked. What do you mean? I've even had just it almost couple times a week, I have an author who'll say, just read my book, you'll be convinced. I go, look, this is not a genre that I'm going to have any luck with, and at all, because of this is one of those things that it's too esoteric, or I try to be polite and nice to people, but sometimes it's like, hey, you don't have the credentials to be writing about something that's has to do with science, and the media aren't going to bite on it. It's just that simple. I mean, I know.
One of the real benefits of hiring a pro like you, there's two benefits along the lines of what we're talking about right now. One of the big benefits is you spend all day, every day, and you spent your entire career understanding what these reporters, what the producers, what the editors are looking for. Right. If I wanted to do that, let's just take CNBC. It would take me 6 months just to get up to speed and figure out who was a producer, who was a booker, who had decision-making authority, what beat do they cover, what are they interested in right now today. And then even after I do all that stuff, the news could change everything. That's why I see so many people who say to me all the time, and this is particularly true of authors too. Listen, I don't want to spend money on a publicist. I can just send out a bunch of press releases myself. And you know what that is? That's like taking a handful of money and just throwing it out the window, because you're going to have to get lucky.
You can Google, you can go see a doctor, or you can Google every disease that's ever been known to mankind on Google and Bing. Okay, you can do that. Or do you want to go to a doctor? It's that simple. And for the same reason that I don't know everything about brain surgery or LASIK eye surgery or something, but I can sell it, but because I know what the public is interested in. It really boils down to the news media's audience. Okay, who is their audience? I know what the audience is interested in most of the time, as opposed to knowing exactly what they might be looking for in the media. It's funny business how it all works, but you do have to follow the news. You have to be on top of the thing, and you got to be focused on what it is that they're looking for, or likely to be looking for.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Scott Lorenzo. You can find him online. I want you to go to his website, and you got to follow me carefully. It's book-marketing-expert.com. And for those of you who are from New York like me and you don't know what a hyphen is, it's that little dash. So book-marketing-expert.com. Scott Lorenzo, if you want to write a book, this is the guy to see about getting some publicity, getting the word out about your book. Here's the thing I want to talk about now, Scott, when it comes to publicity. You guys who are publicists for books really, I think, get a boost now from the internet, because if you write a good press release, that press release will live forever online. Tell the folks who are watching a little bit about how that works and how that has helped some of your clients.
So a press release has a headline, it has a dateline, which like dateline city of where the news is happening, or the dateline of where the author is, or whatever. And then it has an introduction about the actual book itself and the author and why people might be interested in it and where it can be found and so forth. That is the that thing. Then we send it to the various news outlets, and in certain cases it can live forever, like on LexisNexis. It can live forever online at various sites. We can send a release and put it into various services that it'll actually live in perpetuity, as long as the internet's around, I guess, and as long as that company's around that hosts the thing, and so it can be found. It's searchable. It can be found if someone's looking for that topic that you're interested in. Now, a novel, hey, not very many people are looking for a topic that the novel might be, written about. Okay, but it's a business topic or a how-to topic or an informational topic. That stuff is what somebody's actually searching on, so they can be found. So that's how it could be helpful to you online.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about writing books, because I work with a lot of professionals who are very smart and they have a whole breadth of information on a specific topic. And when I say to them, listen, there's an audience for this book, and the audience for this book is anyone who's interested in your services. Rather than send them a business card, you can send them this 200-page book that you've written that you get printed in a print-on-demand way. You can even get it done through Amazon now. Amazon's in the print-on-demand business. So talk to me about books, and particularly self-published books, and some success you've seen with people who are professionals using self-published books.
Okay, so in the word self-published is oftentimes people will use a publishing assistant, and they go through a small publishing house. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's self-published, so to speak. But the name, the reference, or the implication from the term self-published is not as bad as it used to be, say 10 years ago, even. Okay. So, but there's a lot of people, though, that use small publishing houses because they are in that space. They're in the space that actually does a lot of books in a certain genre. This is a great book here. This is a book called Your Body's Chemical Burden. And this is about all the toxins that are in the workplace, in the home, and everywhere. The author is a Michigan author, and she is an expert in this field. I mean, there are so many things that are in our homes: Teflon pans, plastic wraps, all kinds of stuff, not to mention the PFAs in our water and so forth. And she talks about that. I saw her give a speech, a 1-hour speech, and didn't look at any notes, gave it right off the cuff, and had all kinds of details. She had slides behind her, and for reference to the audience. This just further proves her expertise and demonstrates her expertise. She would make a great TED speaker, okay, for TEDx. And she's also will be on the speaking circuit for covering the topic that she's an expert in. Okay, her name is Cindy Clements, and she's an adjunct professor at Eastern Michigan University. This is just one, and this book just helps further demonstrate her expertise. I mean, you're going to want to talk to somebody that has a book that's pretty smart, or that's really smart, or you have somebody who's thinking about writing a book who is also pretty smart. I mean, you're going to take the person with the book. Okay, it's that simple. Sorry about that. Here's another book. This is a book about morally responsible investing. What that is investing in funds and in companies that have a interest in, family issues, Catholic values, and so forth. They've got over $2 billion under management. Okay. They're looking for people that might be interested in their philosophy and investing in their funds. And the book, again, helps demonstrate their expertise. So there's a couple good ones right there.
You hit on a couple of really important things. The first thing is, and I go back to something that one of my college professors used to say all the time that stuck with me to this day, and I've been out of school for 100 years. And she used to say all the time, the way you write is the way you think. And what she was referring to is, don't give me any crap on a paper with muddled thinking. But the way I use it in my business is I say to my clients, look, if you're going to write an article, whether it's posted on your blog or whether you're going to pitch it to somebody to have it run somewhere, or if you're going to write a book, you need to structure it in a way that gives people a window into who you are and how you work. And that's what books are really good for. If you want to hire somebody as an expert, let's say you wanted to hire a cosmetic surgeon. If you read the book the cosmetic surgeon wrote before you decided to hire him or her, you would have an understanding for how they worked and what their approach was and how they got to the place where they were. And it's so much more impactful than if they just stood there in the 3 minutes they have before the consultation to tell you who they are. So that's one thing. The second thing that really hits home with me is when you hand somebody a book, even a self-published book, it looks so crisp and so professional that it just presents you in a way that elevates you compared to everybody else who does what you do. It is the ultimate in differentiation.
Yeah, the ultimate calling card is what I always say. It's the ultimate calling card because it separates you from all the other people who are handing over a dog-eared card or referring people to a website that's 15 years out of date.
Right.
So the book is good, and I recommend people go with if they're trying to put their business out front. A hardcover book, nice book that has good graphics and images and photos and lay it out right. I mean, sometimes books are just printed words, okay, cover to cover, and that's it. And there's others that are excellent and they're well prepared, and it's also a reflection on you. This is a book by Dan Milstein. He's one of the top mortgage broker in the country for years and years. And then he has his book is appropriately titled Rule Number 1: Don't Be Number 2. And that's his thinking. He's number one on everything he does. And he inspires people at all levels. He is also the hockey agent for Pavel Datsyuk, one of the top hockey players in history, and also worked because he's Ukrainian. He immigrated to the U.S. from Ukraine right on the day of the fall of the Soviet Union. He speaks Russian, and so now he represents a number of Russian players. And these books definitely help, show people that he is a credible person and written many books and a bestseller in a couple of them, and it just demonstrates his expertise. So it's really helpful, I'm sure, in his career and so forth.
Is it easier to get someone with a book in front of the media than somebody who's just an expert in general?
If you have a book, it's better. It really is. It depends on what you're doing. Okay, I'm working with 3 guys who were paddling across Lake Erie on a paddleboard, and they just finished up their event yesterday, and they paddled 70 miles, and they did accomplish something very great. They started at Belle Isle on the Detroit River, rode down the river, and then ended up in Ohio at the Catawba Island, 70 miles, and all for the idea of standing up for the Great Lakes. The idea, in fact, their entity is called Stand Up for Great Lakes, and people donated. After hearing the story in the media, they've already hit $15,000 because and the money goes towards helping with actually funding some of the buoys that go out in Lake Erie that measure the toxic algae bloom. So these are guys that are doing something, and when you do something important, guess what? The media is interested. Okay, so you don't need a book. If you do something important, they actually will cover it. And if you do something interesting, they will cover it. If you do something visual, TV loves visual. They were all over this. We had ABC, CBS, Fox, and CBC in Canada covering this thing with cameras, drones, boats. It was a real scene, I'll tell you. And that's as good as you can get in most marketplaces: ABC, NBC, CBS, and Canada.
If you want to, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on the podcast and you want to see this, Scott, I saw this on your website. Is it Book Marketing Expert or was it Westwind Company? The Westwind Company.
WestwindCOS.com is
WestwindCOS.com. Scott has a picture of these guys, and I was just amazed that I like. How many kilometers was that? That was unbelievable.
138. I actually know that off the top of my head because I just saw it in the Canadian newspaper. That's why I know.
That stood out to me when I saw it on your website. It just jumped right out at me. Now let's talk a little bit about how you help authors get publicity. So I'm an author, okay? I've written 3 books. The last one I did was with Wiley. The one before that was with a small legal publisher. The one before that was self-published. Over the last 12 years, I've written 3 books. I come to you and I go, hey, Scott, listen, I got this book. It's been out for a year, the 60-second sale. I'm doing all kinds of great things. What can you do to help me give this book life, give this book legs beyond the 12,000 copies we've sold?
Okay, so that's great. So this author here wrote a book that our team, and he and I, the 4 of us on the phone, named, called The ABC of Sales. The ABC of Sales. And it's a subtle, the other subtle closing in there is always be closing, ABC. And also indicates, it has a double meaning. So it's all positive. So how do we promote that book? We went out and contacted sales organizations, people that write about sales and write about business. Every business has to have a sale. If you don't have sales, you're going out of business, okay? So most businesses are interested in sales, okay? and sales technique, sales methodology, whatever works. Okay. Today something works, tomorrow it won't work. Okay. So anybody can speak to these issues about how to make something work, how to improve their efficiency, how to get the guys motivated, so to speak, whatever it takes. So we're people are always looking for this. Okay. So we're pitching people who write about this, but also we're writing articles about it. Okay. So you have a body of work. Okay. I'm sure. So some of these chapters also would probably make some good articles. So we take those things, maybe edit them down to like 1,000 words, and I would push them out on various places, such as LinkedIn. For sure, for business, they'd be all over LinkedIn. I would have come up with some graphics, and then we'd promote the heck out of those, okay? I'd also make sure they were promoted on your blog, okay? If you don't have a blog, you should have a blog that talks about just those things. On my blog, it's called sorry about the dashes, but book-publicist.com, or for those that need a translation, is book-publicist.com. And that's just focused on articles that I've written, okay, on the topic of books and publicity and marketing. So it's a single vertical of those items, okay? So people can then find those, okay? There's no BS there. It's just those articles, okay? There's a little BS because it's about, I got a little bit of, how you get a hold of me and stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, it's all these articles. So you could search there for articles. I just wrote one today on the topic of Kickstarter, how to use Kickstarter to fund your book. A lot of authors just like they like get to the finish line and they can't take the ball, or they get to the goal line. They can't take the ball over the goal line because they don't have any money to promote it. They can hit publish on Amazon, but they can't go any further. So Kickstarter is a way for some people to help, get some friends, family, whoever, strangers to fund your book. If it's an issue book, there may be people that will support it. You'd be surprised how many Kickstarter projects are funded by family members. This is a way to get their family involved, and through guilt or whatever you want to call it, sometimes people will throw in money. Okay, it's a fact. I've seen it. I know about it. It's one way to get something from Uncle Charlie, who's never given you anything at all. So.
All right, Scott, last thing. I saw that from reading your bio and reading your website that you've worked with some lawyers over the years. We have a lot of lawyers that watch the show on YouTube. A lot of lawyers listen on the podcast. What do you do with lawyers? Give us an example of something that you've done with lawyers over the years.
I've done a lot of books for lawyers. First of all, I like lawyers because they're usually good writers. What I do for lawyers, though, is a number of things. For some lawyers, I do litigation support, public relations. Sometimes you can't get the case heard in a court of law to the extent you can. You can say some things in the public court of opinion that you can't say in the courtroom. And there's ways to get things across in the public that gets them fired up about something that the court is not going to hear. Or in one case we did in New York, we actually got we actually had a ABC, CBS cover a trial in the courtroom and reported on a case where the person actually won the lawsuit. They got a judgment, but the insurance company never paid it. Well, they paid it after the judge couldn't throw them out of the courtroom. They got so much coverage on it that we generated that they got their $1.3 million check and got the insurance company to cough up the money. Okay, which was an incredible story. But that's not a book necessarily. You could write a book about it. But as far as books are concerned for authors, the thing that's interesting about the legal field is there are books. There are a lot of places like Lawyers Weekly. You got National. You got so many publications cover legal issues, and they do features on books that authors write. So there's placement. But you got to have the database, which I have. You got to reach out to the right person, which we do, and you got to it's got to be a book they're interested in. It can't be about cooking with cherry jam or something. It's got to be relevant to the legal industry, and oftentimes it is. And that's where we get the biggest hits. If it's a book about legal issues or a legal mystery, then how can the legal community turn that down, right?
We've been talking this half hour with Scott Lorenzo. He is fantastic for getting publicity for professionals and for authors. That's how I met him, by reaching out looking for great authors to interview on this show. Scott pitched me a good author, and then I said, hey, listen, I like your pitch. I went to your website. I like what you do, and I like the fact that you work with professionals. So I decided to bring him in so that we could have a conversation with him. Scott, I really appreciate you being here. Where can our folks find you if they want to hear more about your services? What's the best place to go?
You go to my website, westwindcos.com. Westwind, like blowing in the wind, cos.com. That's my main website. You could also call me. You can call my office at 734-667-2098. I'll answer many times. I'll answer the phone. And people actually are amazed that I answer the phone. It's like, what?
So as an aside, I've gotten more business from answering the phone, particularly at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you, anybody who calls me at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, I'm answering, because the fact that they're working at 5 o'clock on a Friday tells me that they got something going on, and maybe I can help them.
I placed a story in New York Times on answering the phone at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's awesome. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take Scott's phone number. We're going to put it in the notes below the show on YouTube. We're going to put it in the notes on the website. We're going to put it in the notes on iTunes. We're also going to take the websites that I gave you. Book Marketing Expert with hyphens in between, book-marketing-expert.com. We're going to take westwindcos.com. We're going to put that all in the show notes. If you're listening to this on iTunes, do us a favor and rate us on iTunes. Also, if you're listening on iTunes right now, unless you're driving, you need to go to YouTube, because we put extra stuff on YouTube that we don't include in the podcast. And YouTube is the place to be for all the past shows. You can see all the people I've interviewed in all their glory. If you're listening on the podcast, it doesn't do Scott justice. He is an absolutely stunning man. You got to see him on YouTube.
Oh, shucks.
It has been a pleasure having you on the show, Scott. Thanks for joining us today. Those of you who are listening, I'll see you right back here. Well, you'll hear me right back here next week. Those of you who are on YouTube, you'll see me right back here next week on Thursday. We do this every Thursday. A new show is released at noon. Until then, here's hoping you do this and sell more.